great man who shaped my life. You know, I still recall there's a joke between Tim and I. I wanted to come to America in one of the days, and Tim called the U.S. Embassy for me to go get visa. I got to the embassy and it was a Labor Day. And so it was on Wednesday. I said, hey Tim, I'm at the embassy, but the embassy is closed. They asked me to come. He said, don't worry, you'll fly tomorrow. The next day I was in the plane. He's a great man. He has helped me a lot. Let's put our hands together as we honor this great man.
I first met Jay in 2005 at a youth conference in Ghana. He got off the plane, he weighed 98 pounds, a 3-time refugee, he explained, from his native country, Liberia. A country, I learned, that had had a civil war for over 13 years, and during which they had killed over 1/5 of their population.
I was 9 years when the war started. I was 20-something years when it ended. That's my entire youth there. Did I ask for that? No. But I always said to myself that these things happen to me for a reason. And so I was going to do something about it. I didn't know what I was going to do.
And what really struck me about him was his quiet determination. Not hatred, not revenge for what he had experienced, having family members killed, but a quiet determination, a strength to create a greater future for peace and understanding for his country.
I would go home on the way home and I would see an internet cafe. I needed money to go in there. So I would save up a little bit and I went in the first time to browse. And it said type whatever you want and you're going to get information about it. I typed human rights. And that's how I found youth for human rights on the internet. Just amazing.
Jay and I spent a week together that first time, during which he asked me for help and to come to Liberia to see what could be done together. What came out of that was a human rights leadership program based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that enabled young people to take a leadership role in the creation of their future. And this was inspiring not just the young people, but the leadership of the country.
People like Team States, they're going to create another alternative. They're going to show by their actions, not easy actions. Costly, time, energy, family time, family resources. And they're going to provide another generation somewhere around the world something they can look up to, some kind of hope. And that struck me.
Here's an American older guy and a young Liberian. He became part of our family. And as we worked together, making steady progress with the young people who were so willing to change, I became inspired in turn, much more inspired to do something lasting in West Africa and Liberia. And we have more work to do.
Oh yeah, boy.
The conflict in Sierra Leone started way back 1991 at Bomaru. 94 to 95, that was the time when the rebels attacked our village, Tayama. We are captured with my colleagues. They went further to kill some of my families. which still ring the bells in my ears whenever I think about it. The rebels really, they are our brothers, but they turn against us. They be our enemies. They burnt our village, destabilize our location, vandalize everything we have, kill a lot of people in front of me.
When I was very small, we heard about war coming to Liberia. The war lasted for a very long time, for which many young people were separated from their families. Many young people were abused and violated. Many young people were exposed to violence. So even after the war, after 14 years of civil crisis, we come back into the society and we realize that people are still traumatized. There's still this bitterness among people. Just something simple happens and you see the way that individuals react. Like they are about to fight or something. So it's like the people in Liberia have been exposed to too much violence, and there's a need that we continue to transform the society gradually. Behavior change is not an event; it's a gradual process. So we have to engage the society, young people, and try to transform their lives, because they are still bitter about this whole war thing, about your tribe against my tribe, your father against my father, your sister against my sister. People still have that bitterness in them, and people may say Liberia is peaceful, it's safe, I agree. However, people still have things in their hearts that they need to come out.
I think that in Ghana, the key challenge has to do with unemployment and poverty. Most of our big cities are quickly urbanizing at a rate that even the policymakers cannot catch up with. This is creating a certain transition between those who are rich and those who are poor. The middle gap is causing young people who do not have money, have jobs, have any know-how to create a better well-being for themselves, to be idle. And in their idleness, the only way out for them is to get engaged in gangs, to start robbing people. So that is a key problem in Ghana today.
We have designed a program that engages young people and put them in the field where they actually go out and speak about issues that confront them, that confront the communities they live in their nations as well. Our program is a cycle of training events that begins in the early part of the year.
First, we had the 3-day workshop. We were educated about the 30 human rights.
We are divided into 3 groups. They said that we should choose a human rights topic, which should be a topic that is affecting us in Sierra Leone.
Example, government corruption, child trafficking, violence committed by young people. And then we have a professional editor who comes in and train them how to handle equipments like the camcorder, taking good shots. And then they go out and document. For example, they interview government ministers, NGO leaders, victims of the issues they've taken. They interview school students, they interview street people, they interview the community as a whole. And then they go out to different schools on a target basis of 8 schools per team.
You introduce the 30 human rights to them. You talk to them. Maybe some of them have problems or stories, and then you help them to solve it.
We also engaged the schools that we had presentations in to form clubs. And so we formed clubs and we chose leaders in those clubs who will be more or less like the focal point of Youth for Human Rights in the various institutions.
And in the end, there's a forum and a platform where they come up in front of stakeholders, in front of government officials, in front of their country, and speak up on the issues, speak up on what they've been doing, the research they've made, and the recommendations to government. So we do this in 3 countries, in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, and Ghana.
I think putting young people in a position where they have to step up, where they have to use their practical skills and think on their feet, is an educational experience that greatly enhances their book learning.
Yes, possible term. It is about time that parents begin to expose their children involved in armed robbery.
These are going to be true advocates. They're speaking out for human rights and against abuse in very articulate ways. And I think most importantly what this does is it helps the young people demonstrate to themselves that they're competent members of our society. Okay, we did it. That was UNMIL Radio. UNMIL is United Nations mission in Liberia, and they have a nationwide broadcast, obviously, one of the top stations, and that was their coffee break program, which is it's the public affairs program in the morning for drive time. So we've just reached probably 300,000 to 400,000 people. This is one of the most challenged, poverty-stricken areas of the world. The devastation already being experienced was tripled even farther than that by the Ebola virus that came and spread throughout the country last summer.
A lot of us didn't know what Ebola was. And of everything that region had experienced and everything that people have been through and suffered, I was like, Ebola was just the wrong time. And just when things were a little bit improving.
As Jay was finishing his American education, that's when the Ebola virus hit and started to devastate the country. And yet he was determined to go back, and in fact did, despite the dangers, despite the risk that he had. If he caught this disease, it was almost certainly going to be fatal.
It kills faster than AIDS. So it was pretty striking, the effect of the virus itself compared to other viruses. There was a great distrust between the hospitals and patients. So nobody would go to the hospitals anymore, or nurses would not treat you if you were sick, because they didn't know if you had Ebola. So we heard cases where pregnant women get babies on the street because they wouldn't go to the hospital. Can you imagine your daughter getting sick and you can't touch her at home? You have to lock her up in a room and nobody else can visit her and see her because you don't know if she was spread. That's what people had to deal with. The choices were hard. People had to decide whether to buy bread, butter, or to buy chlorine. People were wrapped around in plastic bags, and you never saw them again. 8,000 deaths over a couple of months, that's crazy.
American leadership promised that the Ebola virus would never reach our shores. And yet that did come to pass. People died, and a panic, a fear, started to spread throughout our population.
We just didn't know what to do about it. But both ignorance and both incapacity to act at that time escalated. We didn't have the techniques, the training, the institutions, the knowledge, and the education. You put that in 4 months, you have epidemics showing up in everywhere. The country was shut down. Ebola told a lot of stories, but what needs to be done was greater than the virus itself. It starts with literacy and it starts with education. Without that, they don't have a place. They don't have a voice. They have nothing to contribute. Of late, we had a young man who headed the national exams of Liberia. What happened? Everybody failed. The whole country failed. He didn't say 2% passed. He said everybody failed the national exams. And this is from high school and to college. Everybody failed. This is a standard test.
We have this crazy dream. Out of the conflict, out of the chaos of 12-year-old child soldiers killing people at will, can arise a country where young people are able to take control of their lives through competent, actual education that enables them to create a greater future.
That this place once upon a time produced the worst child soldiers. We will build an institution that reverses that chapter. A generation to come, when they think about the center that is producing some of the best Africans, they realize it was built by the support of all of us in a region where once before it's not even possible.
Ebola proved we are not immune from the horrors of this world. We are a global village. We have a human right to take responsibility. When we see suffering, when we see injustice, the wrong thing to do is nothing.
For the champions, stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, stand up. For the champions, stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, stand up, stand up, stand up.
Even though I don't exhibit it. So please, let's welcome Timothy Woods. Please. Alrighty. Thank you very much, Mr. DJ. So once again, please keep standing with all humility. This is a very beautiful plaque to honor Tim Bowles in its reads. Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Timothy Bowles. This recognition is bestowed upon only a highly distinguished individuals who have demonstrated a commitment to excellence in their careers and exemplary leadership within their communities. The Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies on this occasion present this Lifetime Achievement Award to Timothy Bowles. Alrighty.
Hi everybody, can you hear me? Is this on? Can you hear me? Hello. How about now? Very nice. Good evening. I was just informed that in Accra, it is now 3 a.m. And in Nairobi, Jared, it's 8 a.m. So you just pulled an all-nighter, man. It's wonderful to be here, Sam, and you know, it's humbling because maybe you have the same idea about your own lives. I don't think I've done anything special. I just did what was necessary. I've done what was called upon. I went to Africa for 1 week. Now, I'm a lawyer from Los Angeles. I thought it might be a nice idea to go to Ghana, have a few pictures taken with young people, you know, help them with their speeches. We had a youth conference, a group called Youth for Human Rights International, a wonderful NGO founded by Mary Shuttleworth. And Mary has dedicated her life to human rights education using the 30 articles of the United Nations Universal Declaration. And so she's developed materials that are very simple, very direct, on the meaning of human rights and the responsibility of human rights. So I thought, hey, I'll just help her out. She's doing a world tour. So I'm off to Ghana. Take a few shots, go back to my law office, you know, put them in my office, and I could tell people that, you know, I was in Ghana. I went to Africa, because I can prove it right there. See those pictures? When I arrived, I met a few people. And one of them was Sam. And the other young man, I was to pick up at the airport, coming in from a place called Liberia. And I was vaguely familiar with the fact that there might have been some fighting there, UN peacekeepers or something. This guy got off the flight and he weighed about 98 pounds, not a short guy. He looked literally like he'd been in a concentration camp. And he was very understated, but very determined. And we, three of us and more, spent a week together getting to know each other. And this young man from Liberia started telling me the story of the Civil War there and a video documentary on the subject. And he told me that the war was very unreal to him. He was in the main city, Monrovia, and all that fighting was elsewhere. That was up country. One day the bullets started flying through his neighborhood, and he had no choice but to hit the road. Their car was taken away from them by fighters, and they had to walk to the border, Sierra Leone. It took them 3 days. When they came around a corner, they were all of a sudden in a line, and that line was being held by rebel fighters with AKs. He was with his dad and his twin brother, and they're going to a checkpoint, to the bridge, the Mono River Bridge. His dad turns to him and he says, "Pick a Christian name." His name is Sekou, after a a Kenyan, I believe. And this young man picked the name Joseph. He loved the name Joseph out of the Bible. So like that, he became Joseph. And he was 11 years old. And he said, because if you use your tribal name, we'll be all shot at the checkpoint. The checkpoint was being controlled by a 12-year-old commander with a 24-year-old girlfriend, and his unit were all in the 20s. This kid was the leader because he was the most cold-hearted killer of the whole group. No one wanted to cross him. And of course, he lived to tell the tale. At the checkpoint, they don't question the dad, they question the 11-year-old. Why don't you have ID? What is your real name? How old are you really? What tribe are you from? And of course, because he's telling us the story, he survives. So this starts to open one's eyes. At the end of this week, Joseph, turns to me. He asked me one question. Can you help me? And I went to, this is a flash in your own mind. You go, this is like a moment. I say to myself, that is so unfair. Why are you asking me this question? I'm just a lawyer from Los Angeles. Okay, I only came here for a week. And now you're telling me about all the suffering and inhumanity, and you want me to help you? And the next thought I had was a question to myself. What is the wrong thing to do? What is the wrong thing to do? The wrong thing to do is nothing. And so I said, yes, I'll help you. Now, I had no idea what that meant. I just knew that we made a decision at that point, and Sammy was part of that. And so we unfolded a program that was magical. The reason it was magical is because we were educating young people, empowering young people to discover their own responsibility, but also their own ability. to do what matters and what's necessary. And talk about pay. Okay, this is why this man works so tirelessly. This is why we're all in this room. Because we don't have a choice. We have an environment, we have a situation on this planet that is dwindling downward. And it's up to us to have some position, that have some resources, that have some determination to make it go back up the other way. Now, I went to Africa for a week, but ladies and gentlemen, basically I never came home. So, life is patience, and I appreciate all of you being here this late. Even some of you that have pulled an all-nighter, that's admirable. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all that you do, Sammy, and all your awards, all of our awardees. You don't really need thanks. When he told me that we was going to do this big thing, he's going to put my name on it and all that, it's kind of embarrassing. It's like, okay, Sammy's getting back at me. Okay? It's revenge for all the times I've made fun of him in public, I guess. Life is hard in Africa. What we might find to be, as Americans, intolerable chaos is status quo in many African countries. And then you add to that 13 years of civil war in Liberia, in unspeakable inhumanity. You add to that 11 years of civil war in Sierra Leone, unimaginable inhumanity. It's hard to look at. And on the other side of it, it's almost, bear with me and thank you for listening. I know it's late. Some reality you probably have. When you're in an African country with severe challenges, but you're in an air-conditioned vehicle, it's got good tires on it, you're going to the UN or some meeting that's going to be air-conditioned and somewhat comfortable, you're going back to a hotel, but you're driving through very challenged areas, poverty-stricken areas that are begging for education, begging for empowerment, begging for tools. No one's asking for a handout. We're asking for know-how. How does one get from this point to a better life? It's not by somebody giving you something. It's by knowing how to get yourself out of it. So we have these tools. We're working in literacy education and so forth. But driving through a place like that, and this happens every time I go, and I've been many times, you feel the stagnation. You feel this apathy. You feel this hopelessness. And it's not just theoretical. It's a physical feeling of weight and despair. That's the way it is. But it sneaks through. It penetrates. It penetrates the steel and the glass and the air conditioning to a point almost in some situations where I'm feeling almost unconscious by this weight, this challenge of humanity that everyone faces on this planet, but some more than others. But here's the deal. The deal is, it doesn't matter what you attribute, what the origin or source of life is. We all have our views on that. We all have our certainties on that. It doesn't matter how you define it, but there is nothing more powerful than the human spirit. Nothing more powerful than that. And so, in the middle of all this challenge, you observe the recognition, brother to brother, sister to sister, the family of humanity, more so than any other place on this planet in Africa, the joy, the irony of survival. In all of this, we are surviving. Despite everything, we're surviving. Death 3 times a day, but we're surviving. And that's why we work, because it's that spirit that is senior to all of the suffering. We know that. So whatever your walk of life, whatever your religion is, we found each other. There's no coincidence. And we work together. So again, I appreciate the time you've spent here. We all do. But let's make this an inspirational night for doing even more, because whatever you're doing, you can always do more. Every single one of us. And we need to do more. Thank you very much for listening. Appreciate it.
Hello, welcome to Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies, a research, teaching, training, and leadership institute that critically provides strategic transformational thinking to leaders and students with the opportunity to develop and create lasting impact in their institutions. Championed by a world-class faculty, one-on-one executive coaching, and peer learning, our programs are offered both online and in cohort sessions. Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies partners with academic institutions, civil society organizations, local communities looking to accelerate the impact of their leaders, more effectively engage teams, and build inclusive cultures of employee engagement and performance. We offer courses such as certificate, diploma, and advanced diploma in counseling psychology, marriage counseling, applied psychology, child mental health, conflict and peace studies, international human rights law, security and governance, and in gender studies. For enrollment, email enroll@jaglobalinstitute.org or visit us online at jaglobalinstitute.org.